We expect the U.S. President George Bush to propose that Russia and the U.S. agree to dismantle the largest strategic missiles with multiple warheads. In September of last year, President Bush made an initiative on nuclear arms reduction, including the withdrawal from Europe and other regions of the world all U.S. tactical nuclear weapons. What motivated the president to take this step is hard to say at this point. Perhaps it was a preemptive strike against his opponents, who at that time had already begun the primary campaign. But perhaps the strongest impetus was concern about the reliability of control over the Soviet nuclear arsenal and fear that in the quickly changing situation in our country, nuclear weapons could fall into the wrong hands. But we did not have to wait for the Soviet answer for long. President Gorbachev, speaking on television on October 5th, expressed his readiness to take similar steps and made several counter-proposals. In part, this concerns the liquidation of nuclear artillery shells and warheads for tactical missiles. The Kremlin leadership is questioning the need for this huge nuclear arsenal in its desire to change our military doctrine. The U.S. and Russia, as the successor to the USSR, are continuing their competition to announce new disarmament initiatives. In an interview with ABC television, President Yeltsin declared that ICBMs under Russian control will no longer be aimed at U.S. cities, and expressed his desire not to stop regarding the U.S. as a potential foe. And so today we await a similar move by George Bush. This is Channel 1 News. There is no doubt that the removal of U.S. cities from the list of potential Russian ICBM targets is a significant step toward world stability. But does this mean that U.S. citizens can now sleep in peace? The three remaining nuclear republics in the CIS did not join President Yeltsin's declaration, and Leonid Kravchuk said that Russian missiles could be aimed anywhere. It's up to the Russian leadership. From Yeltsin's interview, it follows that Russian rockets will not be aimed at cities in the U.S., but does this mean that the security of military bases in the U.S. is clear? We can get a final answer to this question only in an official statement by the Russian president on this issue, but many Western countries have already expressed their satisfaction at the re-aiming of Russian missiles. Perhaps they have a basis for confidence that these freed-up warheads will not fly in their direction. What will become of them then? The staff of the Supreme Commander, the former Soviet Defense Ministry, had no answer to that question today. Their press center said today that the re-aiming is only a political decision so far and that the actual implementation of this measure remains ahead. It is impossible to say definitely now how complicated it will be to reprogram the launching facilities and where will we turn the missiles previously intended for America. At the same time, the White House press secretary said that the U.S. does not intend to re-aim its missiles aimed at the countries of the CIS. Instability, both within the republics and in relations between them, still keeps American politicians and military leaders on alert status. But nonetheless, weapons are beginning to disappear as tensions ease and confrontations end, but Western countries are still mostly concerned about the employment of nuclear physicists who are no longer needed in their country for development of nuclear weapons. The very emergence of this problem speaks to the moral condition of our country. Unfortunately, not in the CIS, but in the USA, there are proposals for employment programs for our nuclear scientists. For 2 days, the Western media have been trying to explain the absence of President Yeltsin from Moscow in unbelievable ways. Many believe it's connected with his ill health. It's a typical reaction for the West and an unbelievable one for us, but these rumors have led to the rise in the value of the dollar on Tokyo stock exchanges. As is known, the dollar rises when the world economic and political situation is perceived as unstable and rumors abound in the absence of information. Today we can dispel these rumors. President Yeltsin arrived in Novorossiysk today. We will show the full report from his ship later, but now we can say that The rumors about the transfer of the Black Sea Fleet to Ukrainian jurisdiction are unfounded. This question was the subject of discussion at the Supreme Soviet of Ukraine today. So first we will have the official position of that sovereign state and then the commentary of our reporter, who has just returned from Sevastopol. President Kravchuk gave a report during the discussion of urgent measures to enhance the executive power of Ukraine. He asked the Supreme Soviet to widen his sphere of powers, including giving him the right to nominate the presidents of several government committees and departments, and also the local representatives of the president. The resignation of Mr. Fokin's government, which was demanded by some deputies, will not save us today, Kravchuk said. It would only lead to greater chaos. Much attention was devoted by the President to the question of intergovernmental relations in the CIS. This Commonwealth has not yet exhausted its potential, and Ukraine, by creating its own military forces, is not backing away by a single step from the agreements and treaties signed by it in the framework of the CIS or between the republics. Nonetheless, some try to portray Ukraine as the destroyer of the Commonwealth, even though we have not violated a single point of the treaties, Mr. Kravchuk said. In light of the strengthening campaign to reconsider the status of the Crimea, he repeated with approval the repeated declarations of President Yeltsin that Russia has no territorial claims on Ukraine. Before our reporters report from Sevastopol, we have new information that has just received from Ukraine. On January 27th, President Kravchuk signed decrees prepared by the Defense Council leadership on leadership of military districts. Kiev Military District will be commanded by Lieutenant General Baryskin, Odessa Military District will be commanded by Lieutenant General Radetzky, and Carpathian District by Lieutenant General Stepanov. Someday, the Russians and the Ukrainians will bitterly regret their current conflict over the Black Sea Fleet. There can be no victor, this is the worst thing, and both peoples could lose out as a result. Neither state can maintain the Black Sea Fleet alone, and many officers already believe that the transfer of the Black Sea Fleet to the Ukrainian jurisdiction would result in the majority of these ships being sold abroad for scrap. Tens of thousands of people would lose their jobs in such a case as well. Ukraine addresses this issue in its reform program, but how will Russia react? Probably with sanctions. The most dangerous thing is dividing the fleet on nationality lines, which has already practically begun. In Sevastopol, Ukrainian military officials announced that whoever swears allegiance to Ukraine will receive everything they need: apartments, coupons, pensions, etc. Others can look for other work or go back to their own republics. Newspapers in Crimea report that in Sevastopol and Simferopol, 12 or 15 apartments have been allocated out of line to National Guardsmen. The most alarming news comes from the Ukrainian Congress, which issued appeals to cleanse the Ukraine of its occupiers. In this first cabin where we took pictures, there were 12 people of 10 different nationalities, including people from Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Moldova, and Belarus. The national conflicts are beginning already today. First-class Captain Alexander Tsibin has arrived here from Georgia in the Black Sea port of Poti with 3 gunshot wounds. He says that sailors there have circled their wagons in an attempt to fend off almost daily attacks and attempts to seize ships. Not only Russians are suffering these attacks, but the sons of other republics as well. We have just received information, a prepared report from Novorossiysk, and we will now show it and then continue the subject. On the eve of his visit to the United States and speech to the United Nations Security Council, President Yeltsin visited the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, the anti-ship cruiser Moskva. The goal of his trip is clearing up his position on nuclear disarmament of the Black Sea Fleet and to explain the position of the Russian government on nuclear weapons on ships of the Commonwealth of Independent States. Having sailed halfway around the world in its 25-year history, one-third, the Moscow cruiser is part of the one-third of ships in the Black Sea Fleet which has nuclear warheads. It is armed with 2 atomic rocket launchers, an anti-ship missile system with anti-aircraft capability, 14 anti-submarine helicopters, version K-25, which search and destroy submarines. In a meeting with the crew of the ship, President Yeltsin emphasized that the most important thing, in his opinion, is the unity of the Black Sea Fleet. Having been created in 1783 as a strategic fleet, the Black Sea Fleet should not betray its traditions. Its main function now is to guarantee the security of the 11 member states of the Commonwealth. Russia has no claim to the Black Sea Fleet, but as the Commonwealth force, it should guarantee the security and control